Zack Snyder should be reveling in the success, or at least the apparent success, of Rebel Moon on Netflix. We do have Rebel Moon 2 coming up in the not too distant future, and I think we also have the R-rated 6-hour cut of Rebel Moon or something silly. Apparently he created his own little niche thing where you make the movie and then you put the really long cut together with titties and the F word in it, and you call that a different thing, and hopefully more people will come watch it. But he is not. Apparently, Zack Snyder is stuck on the fact that this DCEU was basically roundly rejected, basically failed, collapsed in on itself. They went in other directions. It didn't exactly do better post Zack Snyder, but I think he does not like the fact that basically people did not like his interpretation of DC Comics heroes. Now, I will admit, he probably did the best job you could do adapting Watchmen to the big screen as a movie. Including that first 2 minutes, the intro with the Bob Dylan song, one of the best 2 minutes in superhero movie history. Unfortunately, that's probably not only the highlight of the entire Watchmen movie, but probably Zack Snyder's entire career, directing superhero movies. Just in my opinion, I think he did a pretty good job on Dawn of the Dead. But anytime he ends up doing any type of writing to go along with his directing, he doesn't really get characters. I don't think he gets how to develop them and really put them on that hero's journey. And quite frankly, I just don't think that he gives a fuck about superheroes. He only likes his interpretation of what superheroes should be, because everything should be broken and disgusting and gross to look at, just like everything else that we see in this world. And I guess he just can't get over it. And he thinks that everybody is holding Batman back. Speaking on the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, Snyder said he often finds himself in trouble with fans because of his deconstructivist point of view, but assured it's just because I care that I want to take him apart. He uses the example of Batman traditionally choosing not to kill his enemies, and instrumental to his iconic relationship with Joker. I always think that's a weird thing. If I didn't love the character, I wouldn't break them into a million pieces. If I didn't care about Batman, why would I make him look so bad? Obviously I must care about the character if I want to get all the key concepts of the character wrong and present a new version of the character that's more in line with, I guess, my point of view or something. It's almost remember the old school Robin Givens interview with Barbara Walters with Mike Tyson sitting right there, and she said, once he punched me, I really knew that he must have loved me, or something like that. That's almost kind of like the relationship it appears that Zack Snyder seems to have with superheroes. If I didn't love Superman, why would I give him a worldview that doesn't fit the character and make him not a hopeful character, but a complete cynic and question himself and why he's even saving people, kind of thing. The deconstructivist point of view, or deconstruction within comic book superheroes, is certainly prevalent within comic books. Obviously, Alan Moore and Frank Miller really paved the way for that to be something that was widely accepted. And it's just a trope at this point that's overused to the point that it's become nauseating. Most everybody are so tired of seeing their heroes brought down to their level, when the reason that a lot of people buy into superheroes, and the reason that you buy into a character like a Superman or a Captain America or even a Batman, is because you should be raising yourself up to that level. It should be aspirational. That should be the relationship that you have with the heroes that you like. You shouldn't be like, yeah, he's just like me. He's just as messed up and fouled up, and he would make all the same mistakes I would, rather than learning from the hero and going, you know what? That was probably a better way to do it. I probably shouldn't have lost my cool there, and I should have done it like Superman. He continued, Batman can't kill his canon. And I'm like, okay, the first thing I want to do when you say that is I want to see what happens. And they go, well, don't put him in a situation where he has to kill someone. You're protecting your God in a weird way, right? You're making your God irrelevant if he can't be in that situation. He has to now deal with that. If he does do that, what does that mean? What does it tell you? Does he stand up to it? Does he survive that as a god, as your god? Can Batman survive that? I guess is the really big quote that's got everyone talking about. And first of all, within the DC Comics universe, there are a lot of heroes that are kind of treated like gods and certainly have powers that are very godlike. Batman not being one of them, although some people do call him the Bat God after what Grant Morrison did to Batman, to where he's got a plan and a fail-safe for every single thing. He's always ready for every contingency because he's thought about these things and planned for them. Even like Superman turning evil, Batman has a plan because he's the Bat God. But I don't think many people actually look at Batman as a god within the thing there. And I don't think treating Batman like he's supposed to be treated, within the canon of DC Comics. Now, I'm not saying Batman has never killed anybody. Certainly when Batman was first introduced, he carried a gun and he shot people and he killed them. But along the way, as the mythos was fleshed out and the lore was fleshed out, the writers realized we probably shouldn't have him murdering people because it kind of goes against the ethos of being a hero. And if we want long-term relevance for the character, maybe we should do something that kind of transcends time and all that kind of thing. And that's the reason why initially, a Superman can't fly. He can only jump really high. Over time, it was basically established that Batman has made a vow because he saw his parents killed that he's not going to kill himself, but he will go out there and protect people, fight for the people of Gotham City to ensure that that never really happens to any other kids in Gotham City. And it kind of makes sense because, in my mind, at least, this is just my interpretation, that if Batman ever really crossed the line and killed somebody, he would be like addicted to it. He would just start killing everybody because he's literally out there on the front lines every single night in the most crime-ridden city in the world, in the DC Comics universe. And he can't step over that line because there's no going back. Now, if Zack Snyder wanted to create a story with the superhero that kills, Punisher is out there. There are plenty of other superheroes that actually do cross that line, but Batman himself doesn't. And I don't think that detracts from the character. It makes him more interesting. It shows that he has a code. He has an ethos. He has rules that he lives by that clearly separate him from the evil people that he's trying to stop. And it's an easy way to differentiate what Batman is doing, obviously, from his adversaries, because the Joker has no problems with killing. And I think that's a really important distinction. But now that you've told Zack Snyder, actually, Batman can't kill, he has to do it, maybe you just didn't want to make a Batman movie. Maybe that's the big problem with it. And I do think the thing that is really crawling up his ass and it really bothers him is that people didn't accept it. The Justice League movie should have been an enormous hit. Batman versus Superman should be an enormous hit almost no matter what you did. But once people went and saw the movie opening weekend, terrible word of mouth, and then the box office just kind of goes down and down and down. And then obviously the Justice League was tainted by that, and the box office goes down and down and down, and it kind of all even starts with Man of Steel, the original sin of Zack Snyder's DCEU, where he didn't get Superman right. Yes, he flew and he was able to be called Clark Kent and he was raised by the Kents and all that stuff, but he was highly cynical. He didn't believe in hope. His father told him, maybe you shouldn't save those kids. Maybe you should have protected your identity and stuff like that. That kind of goes against the character of Superman himself. And you've got this tainted, way darker version of the universe that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I mean, that's why they created Watchmen. It was supposed to be a more realistic take on superheroes that was a lot more cynical in nature. I don't believe Alan Moore meant for that to be the blueprint for superheroes moving forward. I think he was just trying to show a darker alternative. This is how it could have went if it was really bad. And obviously Frank Miller would do things like that, not only with his Marvel work, but DC Comics, especially with his Batman stuff, Dark Knight Returns and all that kind of stuff. But if you start taking away the core layers of who the character are, you're not really making a Batman movie at that point. And I do think that's one of the reasons that Zack Snyder failed almost immediately. And I do think another reason that he failed really in the DCEU is I don't think he really respected the fans of the DC material. He thought we were just a bunch of virgins and that he was going to be the one to pop our cherries and show us what superheroes were really all about. If you remember, he compared Batman to another comic book film, Watchmen, and its mature story. Once you've lost your virginity to this fucking movie, and then you come and say to me something like, my superhero wouldn't do that. And I'm like, are you serious? I'm like down the fucking road on that. It's a cool point of view to be like, my heroes are still innocent. My heroes didn't fucking lie to America. My heroes didn't embezzle money from their corporations. My heroes didn't commit any atrocities. That's cool, but you're living in a fucking dream world. And that's because he probably was raised on Watchmen and some of these darker interpretations and takes on what superheroes could be if they went down the wrong path. But that's not really the foundation of what DC Comics are, or even Marvel Comics, which have certainly taken a more mature approach over the years, especially within their in-continuity stories. DC has done some very mature stuff, a lot of times in Elseworlds. Sometimes it's more incorporated into the canon later on. But I do think that Zack Snyder thought with his DCEU and Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman and Justice League that he was going to make us all grow up and really see heroes for what they are, the bad people that they are, the fact that they're not perfect, and they go out there and they hurt people and they steal money and they do things in their own best interest, rather than realizing why Superman and Batman have had staying power that lasts over 80 years. something, quite frankly, nothing that Zack Snyder has ever worked on, at least till this day, will really have that. I don't think in 80 years people will still be watching Watchmen. Perhaps in 80 years they'll still be watching 300, but even there, I don't think they will. I know that's the one movie a lot of people point to for Zack Snyder that was really, really good. Me personally, I think Dawn of the Dead is a far superior movie, and I do think Watchmen is far superior than 300, even though I don't think Watchmen is all that good of a movie because it was just incredibly hard to adapt to the big screen. But then he starts writing all these movies that don't have real source material. Man of Steel isn't firmly based on a story. Batman versus Superman has elements of 3 or 4 stories in it, but it's not really based on a story. And then you get the Martha, how did you say that name? And all these stupid moments. And you get his Justice League, not really based on a comprehensive, well-known story. And he just kind of veers off and fucks up all the characters. And then next thing you know, people are like, yeah, don't think that I want to support this version of the DCEU. They have to go out there and get in Joss Whedon to hopefully fix the Justice League. Don't think that really worked out. And then they went in 100 million different directions, and it never really worked. And obviously, James Gunn has arrived for his DCU in another attempt to get this thing off the ground. But basically, Zack Snyder kind of poisoned the well in the very beginning because he got the one core element, the one superhero that you have to get right to have a functioning DC universe, connected universe, and that was Superman. And he certainly fucked up Batman as well. Now, I'm not going to say that I didn't like the moments of a Batfleck beating the shit out of people. You know, it was exhilarating. It was hard hitting. It was well filmed. The sound on it was really, really good. But then you realize, well, he just killed a dozen people. Not exactly Batman that I'm dealing with here. And that was supposed to be the foundation of something bigger. You know, it's kind of like when you go see the Venom movie. It's a pretty interesting film, kind of a dark take on something. Not really a Venom movie. As long as it's not the foundation of anything, I guess you can do something that's an alternative and a different take. But this was supposed to be something that was encompassing and growing and growing and growing. And the fans basically told him to go fuck himself because they realized he didn't like superheroes either. And that was really the big problem. And it's clear that Zack Snyder isn't quite over that yet. But I've certainly talked about this extensively here on the channel and all the reasons that I think Man of Steel and BVS and Justice League and all those things that Zack Snyder worked on are severely, severely flawed because he doesn't get the characters and he just doesn't care about them. If you would like more conversations and coverage around comic books, not only movies, but cartoons, video games, comic books themselves, I do want to invite you to go check out the Patreon. There's a link in the video description. And we talk about this stuff all week long, 8 hours of brand new content on the Patreon every single week. It is the best place to be if you're a big old comic book nerd like myself.